In today's lesson, we are going to look at products, and more specifically just to revise the products that you've been working with last year in grade 9. Now, just an overview, once again, we are going to start with the FOIL method, as you know that, and then squaring binomials and looking at the two methods that you can use, and then also where you have products that are resulting in difference of squares, easier way to do them. And then finally, just more complex sum where you collect the like terms. You'll see what that looks like when we get there. Okay, so for example 1a, we just have a very basic FOIL method. And remember, FOIL stands for, if I write it out, first, outer, inner, and last. Now, you can do it and think about it this way, as we've got we multiply the first terms, the outer terms, inner terms, and last terms. Although I actually like to think about it as just focusing on the first term, then multiplying it out with everybody in that bracket, and then focusing on the second term and multiplying it out with everybody in the second bracket. The reason why I would say think about it this way is because in the next lesson we're going to start by multiplying binomials with trinomials. And then you're going to have to actually think about it that way. But you do obviously what you find most comfortable with. Alright, so let's start. And we've got 3x times by the first one is 6x squared. Then 3x times by y is plus 3xy. And here we have minus 5y times by 2x, so it's a negative and a positive gives me a negative. And then 5 times 2 is 10xy. And then finally, minus 5y times by positive y, so minus 5y squared. Then, for the final step, I see that my middle terms are like terms, so I can just add them. We've got 6x squared, then 3 minus 10 gives me negative 7xy minus 5y squared. Alright, so that is then my final answer. Now for example 1b, we have the same. So I'm going to multiply the first term out with those two, and then the second term with those two. And if I have 2a squared times by 5a squared, I get 10a to the power of 4, because remember your coefficients multiply, but your exponents add. Then going on to the next one, that's just times by 1, so it's plus 2a squared. And then multiplying these out, we get negative 15a squared, and then finally negative 3. So now adding the like terms, this one is just the same, and then plus 2 minus 15 gives me negative 13a squared minus 3. Okay, 1c. Now we are dealing with fractions. Alright, so once again, we still have a binomial times by binomial, so those method still applies here, just doing the same there. But let's just draw out a fraction first. Let's say we've got 1 over 3a times by, that's now the first ones we have to multiply, times by 1 over 2a. So if I multiply, just going back to your primary school maths, multiplying these two fractions, when we multiply fractions, we have the numerators multiplied, 1 times 1 is 1, and we have the denominators, 3 times 2 is 6. And then our variables, a times a is just a squared. So that's all we have to do there. Now the first term is then 1 over 6a squared. Then we have to multiply it with the second one, so we've got a positive multiplied by a negative, that gives me a negative, and then 1 times 1 is 1, and then 3 times 3 is 9, and then a times b is ab. Alright, and then finally we've got 1 over 2b times by 1 half a. If we multiply those out, we get plus, because both are positive, 1 over 4 AB. Now notice it is B times A, but I'm going to write it as AB because normally we write it alphabetically. B and BA is the same as AB. And also it makes it clear that these two are like terms. And then finally that guy multiplied by the last term, we have minus 1 over 6B squared. Okay, and now we just add our like terms, and we can do this on the calculator. I'm just going to quickly do it here plus 1 over 4. So this is just 36. It's times by 4 times by 4, and then times by 9 times by 9. So you have minus 4 plus 9 over 36, and that gives us negative or a positive 5 over 36. Okay, so then plus 5 over 36. I would actually recommend just typing that into your calculator, and then minus 1 over 6b squared. Okay, so that is our final answer there. Okay, and that was basically the FOIL method. Then moving on to squaring binomials. Here we only have 2 examples, and the first one, I'm going to show you 2 methods. And for the first method, remember, if I have x squared, what does that say? That is basically x times by x, right? So you can start off and just expand it first. You can say a plus b times by a plus b. Notice both are pluses because we just multiplying the same thing with itself. And then what we do is just using the FOIL method. So we'll have a squared plus ab plus ab plus b squared. Okay, and then adding the like terms, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, that's easy enough. Now the other method, it's shorter. So if I have a plus b squared, then I'm going to, what I'm going to do is simply going to, because don't get confused with this is wrong. This is what a lot of people would do. They'd say a squared plus b squared, just simply taking the 2 into both. Now that is very wrong. Now you can obviously see that it's not the same. So the other method is to say, okay, I square the first one. That is what we just did there. And then the thing that you're missing is for the middle term. To get this middle term, you have to multiply them with each other, multiplied by 2. So you say multiplied by each other is AB, multiplied by 2 is 2AB. And then square the last one. So this works for every one that where you have a binomial squared. Square the first one, multiply by each other, multiply by 2, and then square the last one. So let's look at another example. If I have x minus 3y squared, so the short method will be square the first one, so that's just x squared, then multiply each other and then multiply by 2, so this is going to be a negative 3xy, but multiplied by 2 gives me 6xy, and then square the last one. Now if I square a negative number, it becomes a plus. Square the 9y squared, and remember, when you, like, if I square negative 3y, it becomes a plus, and then the square needs to go to the 3, so it's going to be plus 9y squared, as I showed you here. Now you can also, if you're not comfortable with this method, just go and expand it and FOIL it out. It's just more work, but probably easier. Okay, that's done. Now let's look at products that result in difference of 2 squares. So this is also optional. It's when you identify, remember when we did factorization, we had x squared minus y squared, and then we had to factorize this. And the rule for difference of squares is if this is a perfect square minus a perfect square, we factorize it and we get x plus y and x minus y. We are going to revise this in some of the upcoming lessons, but this was done in grade 9. Now, if you can recognize that, can you see that this one has got 3x minus 2y and then it's got 3x plus 2y? So this is actually in the form of the factorized version of difference of squares. So instead of like going all the way and foiling it out and doing all that work, all we need to do, we can actually just work backwards to difference of squares. And what we're going to do is we're going to say this x, you square it, so then we get in our case we've got 3x, so the square of that is 9x squared, and then minus the square of this is 4y squared. And that's our answer. Because this is basically, if you factorize this again, you'll get back to that. So this is optional. You can actually check if you FOIL it out that you will get to the same answer. Right, now for the final section. This is basically what we've been doing the whole time, just bit more complicated sum, like we've got squaring brackets over here minus a FOILing sum here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the easy, or well, the faster way when we square a binomial. So we square the first one, it becomes 4x squared, multiply together, multiplied by 2, so we have 2xy multiplied by 2 is 4xy, and then square the last one, so plus y squared. Okay, now moving on to this one. This is a negative, so be careful. When you put a negative and you have stuff here, you have to still keep your brackets until you actually multiplied out the negative. So we just keep our brackets and then just do this multiplication. So we're going to FOIL it. X times x is x squared. X times plus 3y is plus 3x xy. And then multiplying this guy in, we've got negative 4xy, and finally minus 12y squared. Okay, now you've got a choice. You can first, like, you see there's like terms here, so you can first add them and then multiply in the minus, or you can first multiply in the minus and then add your like terms, or you can do it at once. I wouldn't really recommend it, but so for this one, we just write it down for now. Okay, so let's just simplify the inside. There's a lot of writing, but I'd rather be safe. Minus xy, so it's 3 minus 4 is minus 1, minus 12y squared, and then we multiply out the brackets. So 4x squared plus 4xy plus y squared, so that's minus x squared plus xy plus 12y squared. All right, so easy way to, when you multiply out a minus, just remember the sign just changes. So this was a plus, that becomes a minus. Minus becomes plus, minus becomes plus. Okay, and then the final step is we're just going to add our like term. So we have 4x squared minus x squared. So this gives us 3x squared. Then we have plus 4xy plus xy. So that's 4 plus 1 is 5. So plus 5xy. And then finally the y squared. So we've got 1 plus 12 is 13y squared. And that is then our final answer. Alright, so that's it for today. Then you can do your homework that applies to this lesson.